Hi and welcome to another posting of this Mark II Jaguar wide-body two-door coupe. Well, a little bit of that, mainly the Land Rover, because that's what I've been concentrating on. So obviously the Land Rover 101 as well. So firstly the Jag, I have been doing some work on it, and I did say that I was going to create a heat shield around where the headers are, because the AJ6 engines are tilted over. I can't remember the degrees. I think something like 10 degrees or something silly. But with the tilt of the engine being slightly over, obviously it brought the headers closer to the footwell. And because I'd moved the engine back 7 inches, obviously there's more headers in there, so it's quite close. So even though I put some gold reflective, it's not tape, it's just this, it's gold reflective stuff anyway. I put that in to reflect the heat, but because the headers are quite close, I thought I'll make a heat shield, which I talked about. So I've been doing that and trying to work in there and build this thing. Pardon me, it took me a bit longer than what I thought it would do, but there you go. But anyway, you'll look at it and you think, well, that's not right much of out, is it? But it's not, but it did take me some time, because panel beating is not my strongest forte. So that is the panel. Now, like I say, it's not much, but it had to go as far as I could up to the exhaust, but to retain an air gap. But obviously, it has to be far enough away as well from the actual car body. And I've got this area here, the steering column coupling from the rack to the column itself comes up here. And so I had to make it so it really tucked around, so that's what this part here is doing. It's pushing this lot in so the coupling can go there. So that's what I made. I did try and get it in my wheel, and I did wheel up some of this. I panel beated it first on my leather bag, and same with this, and then I wheeled it. But because my English wheel, I've got a Rambler English wheel, and it's way too big for doing stuff like this. But I managed to get it in there and get it somewhat pretty, and same with that. But most of it's just been done by hand. So dolly, hammer, obviously I use more than just these two, but that's mostly what this has been made, and the bends there on the bender, and a bit over a block and stuff. So a bit of all sorts to make that. So that's on the Jag. I've now got to now fasten this thing in, which I'm not exactly sure whether I'm going to mount it to the engine or mount it to the body. I'm not sure yet. I think the body would be better, but anyway. So that's my next task, getting this thing mounted. So that's a Jag, and that's all I've done on Jag. So those who are watching it for the Jag, sorry that we're not getting as much movement on there, but I wanted to get the Land Rover going, and because it's costed me so much time because of the problems it's been thrown up, and I've been chasing to find out what was going on and why I wasn't getting all the cylinders. So this is where we are. So now onto the Land Rover. So I got it going, and we're on 6 cylinders, and I talked about we'd change the cables. I think I talked about changing a couple of the HT cables to 1 and 3 cylinders. It made no difference. I couldn't get them on, and I'm thinking, is there something else going on here? But one of the things that I did do, which I did discuss with you, was one of the old acts that we used to do when I was kids with the motorbikes, was if it wouldn't start when it was cold, we'd make the gap on the plug smaller. And so I'd done that. And like I say, I got 6 out of the 8 on. Anyway, once I got it running, to a degree, it was like, okay, then is it just because it's flooding it up, you know, because it's not been started? And I was just going through all this. So we got it going, got the engine warm, we opened the gaps up back to the standard, and then it was, at least these 6 cylinders should come on, and then it should, you know, so I've got the right gaps, and it wouldn't start at all. And that was like, that must be the coil. It's got to be the coil, because it's been running on 6 and now it won't run on any. It will just kick in and it will try, but it wouldn't light itself up. So that to me it was telling me it was the coil. Now this is the coil. It's a correct ohmage for the electronic ignition I put in the distributor. I did check it with the ohms, and this is a 3 ohm. Yeah, it's a 3 ohm. This is a 3 ohm range. It measured out at 3 ohms. The high tension side and the low tension side measured perfectly. It was well within the mark. And when I was running it, before I even run it, when I was checking it for ignition timing, I was getting a good spark. And yet, that was the cause. So I thought, I'm going to change the coil just as a matter of course. So I bought another coil, 12 quid. Put that on, fired it up, boom, all cylinders, all on. So it's all on now. So we got it running. We brought it to temperature, and then it was a case of vacuuming up the carbs and getting those right. Well, it's not vacuum because it's actually airflow, which I use. So this is my airflow gauge, which I bought. I bought this originally for my MGA 1961 MGA coupe, which I built, which had twin carbs on it, and I needed to balance those, so that's what I bought this for originally. But yeah, so we put this airflow meter on, and we were running, I think it was 12. I think one was 11 or 12 kilograms an hour of air on one carb, and the other one was, I think, 18 or 19 kilograms of air. So on these carburetors, in fact, I'll take a picture and I'll put it in the top corner. So remember, Leo, pictures of carbs on the adjuster. So the little adjuster, the grub screw and the nut, they're not hexagonal. The adjuster is basically just a bolt with a slot in the top for a screwdriver, flat-ended screwdriver, and the nut was just a round ring with some slots cut in it. I'll take a picture of this tool, what I've made. So on these carbs, that's what it was. So I had to make this tool to undo the lock nut, and then the screwdriver sits inside, and you adjusted it like that, and then once you got it, the airflow running, you locked it down. So in the manual it said running temperature 600 RPM, and both carbs have to equally balance, and it doesn't give you an airflow reading or anything like that. It just says they've got to be equal at 600 RPMs at running temperature. So I didn't have anything to measure the RPM, so I guessed that, but we brought it down on the scale here to, I think it was 9 kilograms an hour. I think it was 9 kilograms an hour of airflow on both carbs. Then we locked it off, and she's right. The only thing I'd noticed while we was doing this was there seemed to be a lot of steam and water on the floor. And I thought, it's been running now for quite some time, so any kind of residue that would have been in the system, maybe from when I was trying to start it or anything, would have been basically evaporated out of the system, because we had it running for a good half hour easy, and yet there was still water coming out, and that concerned me. I checked the top hose, and there was a little bit of pressure there, but it wasn't solid. It certainly wasn't solid. So I thought, what's going on here? Anyway, I've been online, and it does appear that this particular egg gasket, so when I bought the gasket set for the engine, I bought the whole lot. But this is the gasket, and this area here apparently and here is where the water comes through. And because it's just a steel compressible gasket, they rot here or here. So if you've got water apparently coming out of the back of the head or at the front of the head, it's because that's rotted there. If you're using water, it's there. But I have seen on a few videos I've watched where it's been blowing in other places, but I don't seem to have any problem as such. I don't know. But anyway, what I do know is that we've got water, a lot of it coming out at the back of the exhaust, and it's not what the engine. I know for every gallon of petrol that's burnt off, a pint of water is produced. But I'm going to show you. We're getting, well, I won't say there's more than a pint pouring out, but we've got quite a lot of water coming out, and it's not what the engine's producing just naturally. This is obviously must be coming from the actual engine, and so it is. I'm going to have to take the heads off. I'm going to check the manifold, induction manifold first, because that's water in there, to see if there's any cracks in there that could be drawing water in. But I very much doubt that. But I'm going down the avenue, it's the heads. Apparently it does seem to be with this gasket that it appears to be a common fault with them. So that's what we're going. So we're going to get the camera set up over here. We're going to get it running. You're going to be able to hear it, but then you're going to start, we'll show you the water on the floor, and you'll be able to see the steam. It is steam that's coming out. It's more like a steam train than, yeah. And it's like, say, it's not cold here, but it's not cold enough to make it what we're getting. So we're going to get the camera set up, and I'll get it fired up, and you'll be able to see it, and I'll show you. Right, so we had it running earlier on, a minute, if that. And you should be able to see this water on the floor, and this was probably a minute's worth of running. She fires straight up, and she's been stood since last Saturday. So yeah, water. So I'm going to fire it up. You'll be able to see it, and the smoke. The steam. It is steam that's coming out. It doesn't burn any oil or anything. It's really clean that way, and the engine's really nice, but unfortunately it does appear we've got a neg gasket, so I'm going to go here and fire this thing up. Right, so I'm going to fire it up. So a bit of choke, or about 3/4 choke. Just turn on key. I'm not going to hit the throttle or anything, just turned on the key. I'm putting a bit of choke off. So we're probably about 1,000, 1,200, something like that, tick over at the moment. You can see it's running quite clear, but it's going to start steaming in a second. You should be able to start see it's coming on now. And as it starts to get going, here, can you see it? You should be able to see this. And it's a cloud. And then water will start coming out, start dripping on the floor, and I'll give it some revs and it'll get worse. Sounds lovely though with pipes I made for it. Proper chuff with that. She's going to sound well when she gets on road, is this. In fact, we're getting to the point you might not be able to see me in a second. And this is depressing, is this, in a sense, because Leo said to me last week, why didn't we just do egg gaskets when we had engine out? We could have just stripped the whole engine down at that and said we'll just go through it. But I said I took a punt on that. It was going to be okay, but obviously it's not. Let me drop the revs down a bit more, and then I'll give it some revs, and you can see the water's already coming out. There's water already, and it's like I say, that's not just residue. This is literally the engine's. It's picking this up from system. Is that? Unfortunately, let me give it a few revs, and you should be able to hear it, and you'll be able to hear it in there as well. So I'm just dropping choke off a little bit more. think you can see it's absolutely pumping it out, unfortunately. She sounds really well, but unfortunately this is where we are. Like I said, that I knew there were probably going to be some reason why this Land Rover was taken off the road. I did come across a guy, or I should say this guy came across my video. I don't know if he's watched any others. I've forgotten your name, mate. I'm terrible with names, but he said he thought he recognised this, and he was telling me a bit of the history of it. And it stopped being used because of rock, but I think also it probably was using water. But yeah, here we are. So it's an heads off job, and we're going to do, and hopefully the heads are going to be straight, otherwise they're going to have to be skimmed, and I'm hoping there's no damage on the block. We'll see. Anyway, so we'll go turn it off, and then we're going to go start setting up, so we'll take it from there. But it is a shame, because it does sound really well. Like I say, lovely sound. It's one of the reasons why I liked it, Land Rover in the first place, this 101. So that's ticking over. And I think it's that the little kick it's got there you can hear is maybe probably because of the water. But anyway, here we go. Heads off time. So what we're going to do is, this is the attack which we're going to do on it. So first off, gear selector, just to clear that. Then the exhaust down there, the two sets of runners we got, there's 3 bolts on each side. We're going to take those off. I'm not going to take the headers off the heads. I'm going to leave those on. There's no reason to take them off because they're going straight out of the back. Then we're going to drop the water. That's what's left in it anyway. And then we're going to take off the induction pipe work from the airbox. We'll take that off, but we'll take it off at the rubber joints here for this collector. I don't know if you call it a collector, but anyway, or merger, that might be a better term for it. The merger for the 2 pipes, but anyway, we'll take that off, and then under all the ancillary pipes and cables. Then we'll take the manifold off, and then it'll be the rocker covers and then the head bolts, and I think that should be it. I've never taken heads off one of these before, so that's the angle of approach we're going to take. And yeah, so we're going to do a time lapse, or speeded up. I think it's speeded up. I don't know if the camera does time lapse, but anyway, that's what we're going to do. And so you'll be able to see us whipping these heads off, and hopefully we'll find the issue of where the water's been drawn in. It's a shame, but we are where we are, and it's just one of those things. So here we go. So we've got the cylinder heads off, and to say that I'm bemused would be an understatement, really. I really can't find any head gasket damage. I'll take some pictures of the blocks because it's hard to really see in there just getting a camera without moving around. So I'll put some pictures in so you can see the tops of the blocks. There's no damage on the tops of the blocks at all. I've got a precision, it's not a total engineering precision straight edge, but it certainly is calibrated. The sticker's worn off, but it is extremely straight, is this. I've had it across the heads and both of them, and they're perfectly okay, so it's not a warped head. On the gaskets, I can't see any damage really on the gaskets for water leakage. Where they're supposed to go, apparently the gallery here and here, ports, they're supposed to rot through the gasket. There's nothing. And both heads are the same. So let me just move this one. In fact, let me move that out of the way. So this is the other cylinder head. Oh, making a right mess of it here. As we can see, it appears that there's no leakage at all. I have some, I won't call it marking. This is a front on the near side, and even though it doesn't look like it's been leaking, but there is some like material build-up or something. I don't know whether they put something on the steel gasket to seal, but it doesn't look like it's been leaking past it, but there's just bits and pieces. But the heads are telling me that it's not leaking, and the blocks are the same. So I don't know where to go from this point, because apparently on the overboard engines they have a propensity for cracking liners, and so they leak. But this is a 3.5 litre. The liners look good. There is a little bit of water marking in 2 of the liners, but I was talking to Leo whether I'd completely pull the engine down and just get a horner in, and not a horner, glaze buster, and just go over it. But it's not significant to warrant me pulling engine down for it. But there certainly doesn't appear to be any cracks in the liners. I can't really see anything wrong with the head gaskets, which annoyed me somewhat, because I was expecting, from what I'd seen, to see the gasket going, but they're perfectly okay. They're perfectly okay, as from my opinion, from what I can see. So my only avenue now is the induction manifold. But even then, on all the chambers, they've not been washed clean. Now, okay, the engine hasn't really been doing that much work since I've got it going. But my assumption was that the vehicle was laid up because of a possible head gasket. Now, if it was an head gasket, possible head gasket, before it was laid up, then these cylinders some of them would be clean of carbon deposit, and there isn't. There really isn't. So I don't know really where this water's coming from, and if it is just literally the engine producing this, naturally producing it from induction, from the water from the atmosphere, well, knock me over with a sock, because the water coming out there was a lot. To say that it wasn't overly moist was the air, I would have said, and it was doing it while it was running. I couldn't verify it with the radiator, as in usage, because I've got a slight radiator leak, which I've now got to get sorted out. But hey ho, this is where we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the heads up. I'm going to take each individual valve out. I'm going to regrind them while it's out. I might as well, and then we'll be putting them back together. And yeah, and I'm going to pressure test this manifold. But I can't see it being the manifold. I really can't. But if anybody who's played with these engines have come across a manifold or something where it's saying you couldn't find any gasket problem, but yet you use it in water, where was it? Where was the fault? Let me know in comments, because like I say, I'm bemused now, because it's like that's what I was expecting, and unless it isn't, it's just started and it's not been enough damage to actually make it look. But I don't think that. I really don't think that at all. Anyway, so we'll carry on with the build. So like I say, valves out, we're going to grind them in, reseat it all, and then we'll throw it back, clean it up and throw it back together. So let's get to the next bit. So just hold on. I said I'd do the valves, so I pulled all the valves out. I didn't bother doing a bit of video for that, because everybody knows how to take valves out of a cylinder head, or at least if they play with engines they should do. But anyway, I was expecting it just to be plain sailing, but obviously it's not. This is the worst valve out of the lot, but none of them are any good really, and in relation to play within the valve guide. So I've set this up. This gauge is an imperial, is this. Obviously it's not going to give me a perfectly accurate reading, but it's going to show you how much play, or wear I should say, is actually in this valve. So this was the first one I took out. This is number 1 cylinder, and I'm getting about 18th hour play. So let me just set it up so it's at 0 there. So we're set at 0. Hope you can see. Oops, I've moved it there. So this is the amount of play that we're showing. Oops, sorry. It's difficult to show because of the pointer I've got on it. Let me get this right. It's all over. I've just been practicing this to try and get this right, just so you could see it. Because it's sliding up and down bar as well there. Anyway, it's roughly averaging out when I get it set in, because there's a lot of wear on the valve stem. So, but it's only one-sided. But I hope you can see that. So it's roughly about 15 to 17th thou a play. So let me just take the clock off. Not sure if you'll be able to see this. Let me come from this side. It's difficult to show. But there you go. Anyway, but they're all pretty much the same. Some are better than others, but there's literally a load of play in all of them. I've also, when I was inspecting close to the cylinder heads, this one is really quite shiny. It's really quite smooth, as if somebody's had some sandpaper on it. There's no machine marks in it at all. This one, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it. I'll try and get the light on. You can see where the fly cutter's cut on this, and it really is. If you can, let's see if you can hear this with my fingernail. I think you should be able to hear that. This is quite deep. Now, looking where the gallery is, port. It could have been, but I don't know. I don't know how fine it should be, but I don't think it should be that coarse. So I'll just put this down. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with these heads in relation, because they don't look like they've been leaking, but that one certainly has been skimmed, and this one looks like it's been sandpapered down with some fine sandpaper, because I don't think they're supposed to be actually mirror shiny as such, and that is really smooth. I'm going to do some investigations, but I think that's too coarse. But even if I leave those, because they don't appear to have been leaking, but I'm thinking maybe that one could have been the cause of it getting water in, but I don't know. But the valves, they are buggered really. So I think I'm going to have to change the valves and the guides in these heads. So that's a bit of a pain. I could just grind them back in, but it's like that's. I'm not going to go down that avenue, because I know in my own heart that this thing isn't right. And yeah, I could go to town completely on the engine, but I don't think it needs it. I'm a bit disappointed with this, and I'm disappointed with the water. I was hoping I could just get it going, and then I could move on to the next thing, and now I'm thrown back at engine. But I suppose that's the way it goes, isn't it, sometimes. But we'll move on. So we'll leave it at this for this one, because I think we've got quite a bit of footage. I don't know exactly how much. We've been doing time lapse on it and stuff, so I don't want it to spread it out too long and get everybody bored. So we'll leave it here with this. My next video will be a case of, have I just got valves and guides, and I've just cleaned these surfaces up and thrown it back together. I probably will do, I think, to be honest with you, because they don't look like they've been giving it a problem with what they have, even though they don't look as they should be. But anyway, that's that. So, as always, thanks for watching, your comments, and I wasn't going to end the video here. I was going to get some comments that people had put up and write it down, but because what's going on now, I'm cutting this video here, so the next one will be hopefully the rebuilding and throwing it back on, so I'll bring the comments up in that. But as always, I'm grateful for the comments, your input, your interest, and yeah. So you all take it steady, and hope this video you'll enjoy, and waiting for the next one. So have a good one, everybody.